Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Engineering Moments podcast, where we talk about software development from a leadership perspective. Today, we're going to be talking about scorecards for development teams, what scorecards are, how you build them, how you use them, and some of the advantages that it can give you, both as a team and as a manager. Right. So, what is a scorecard? A scorecard is essentially a collection of metrics that you use to quantify your team's performance over a period of time. Um, Now, this can tell you different things about your team in terms of how well your team is doing, or even how well the application you have in production is doing. Now, how do you build one? Uh, my advice for building a scorecard is to do it collaboratively with your team. Uh, the reason is that it is important to get buy-in when you're doing something like this, because you're going to essentially have this ritual with your team where you're constantly tracking certain metrics. And if you need everyone to have ownership on these metrics, on the metrics, and have it be important to everyone. Um, So, you know, now I'm going to talk about how I went about building mine with one of my teams, and understand that the outcome, or the outcome of this session, can be so different metrics for different teams. It depends on what's important to you. So, uh, how I went about mine was, like I say, have, one or two sessions with your team. First of all, you want to start talking about what is important, what you want to track. We landed on two main things. High level is, we want to track how well the team is performing, and we want to track how well our application is performing. So that's sort of quality and delivery. So we were able to break that down further in terms of, okay, what are the things that tell us how well our application is doing, and we landed on a few metrics that I'm going to sort of just talk about. The first one is like your error rates or your crash free rates. Depending on if you're mobile, you're looking at crash free. You can usually get that from Crashlytics. If you're a web application, you have an error rates that you can get from Datadog. This essentially tells you um, how often people encounter errors when they use your product. Um, and then the next one was bug score. Now, we created this is something that we created internally as a team, and it's a bug score takes into uh, account all the reported bugs, like, let's say, from customer service, or however you get bugs reported to you, and the detected bugs. So you likely have something like Sentry, or maybe even Crashlytics, whatever, that's tracking bugs on production. And from these sources, generally, you're creating Jira tickets, and these tickets then get prioritized, and we were able to create a scoring system based on the priority of the tickets, and then we arrived at a bug score. So we track that, and then other things like average load time for like cold starts. So how long does it take your application to start cold? Um, the average latency. So in terms of across all of our endpoints, what's the average that we want? We don't want endpoints to we don't want our average latency to go above a certain threshold. Naturally, again, it's an average, because some endpoints are faster than others just because of what they do. But it's good to sort of, as a team, have a threshold that we never want to go above this. Um, And then I think this one's also really important, number of incidents. So we track the number of incidents that we receive. And the last one was mean time to recover, which is essentially when you have an incident, how long does it take for it to restore the system? So these were all the sort of quality metrics that we had on our scorecard. And then we had two for sort of to tell you how the team is performing. Um, um, the first one was cycle time, which essentially measures the time between your first commit and when a PR gets merged. And this industry standard is about 48 hours. And this tells you a lot of things. So um, when this number starts going up, it can point to different things like maybe someone's struggling because it's taking them longer to sort of do certain tasks, or maybe we're not breaking our work down. Maybe we're having tickets that are 8 points or things like that, and that's those sort of things generally introduce more complexity, or well, more complexity, and sort of you're likely to have scope creep when you have those really large tickets. Also, maybe someone's we're not keeping our PR size small enough. So this can point to a lot of things, but this is a good metric to track. And then sprint completion. Again, this is a good metric to track. I've seen some people with scorecards that tell you how many points we completed and how many tickets we closed. I think that I like sprint completion more because we can negotiate all those other things when we do sprint planning. We can decide, what, we're going to start committing to more points, but this checks that how good are we at meeting the expectations we've set for ourselves. And what we usually do with this metric is that there's a plus minus 10%. So um, either if you're below 90% or you're above 110%, it sort of signals that there's something wrong. Sometimes in a sprint, something will happen, and naturally, you don't always meet, 100%, and sometimes you do a bit more. But if you're consistently doing way more, then maybe it's a good sign that you should start aiming for more as a team. If you're consistently meeting less, then you need to figure out, likely a lot more reasons why that is happening. So you need to look into that. So these are some of the metrics that we used. There's a lot more that you and your team could have in there. Now, how we use this metric. So you want to have a cadence for when you track this. We had a weekly cadence. I like the weekly. Now, on weeks where we had retro, we looked at this in our retro. On weeks where we didn't have retro, we had we just put it on the Team Slack channel, and we had a discussion. Now, it goes without saying that you want to have a threshold, you want to have a specific cutoff for each one of these metrics to sort of, something's green or red, and essentially when something is red, when something is below the threshold or above, whichever, however the case may be, um, it's usually in that moment of time, it might be worth a discussion, but what you're really looking for is trend. So you're not essentially taking things, just a snapshot of what's happening that week. You're tracking this across multiple weeks. So when you're sharing maybe a screenshot of your scorecard, you want to take maybe the last 3 or 4 weeks, so that you can see the trend. That's what the team is looking at. And then if you see that something's trending in the wrong direction, that's when you start to have conversations about, okay, do we need to do something about this? is there a mitigating factor? Is this a known issue? For example, I think there was a time where we were refactoring a piece of a module in our code that had a lot of bugs. So our bug score in that area went up, and even though it got our bug score went up past our threshold, we knew that we we were we were ignoring some bugs because we were refactoring something, and those issues were going to go away once the refactor was done. So it was fine for us. So but as a manager, the important thing about scorecards is it helps you um, smell danger. You know when there's something there's a potential issue, and you're not blindsided until the thing until it becomes a serious issue. You start to see symptoms early, and then you can start to tackle them as a team. And it also, I think, the other thing in terms of the benefit for the team, it helps you uh, figure out, identify some issues. I remember another time we had a problem with our cycle time, and when the team started having conversations, we looked deep. We looked at sort of how long it takes for once a PR it has been created, how long it takes for someone to pick it up and review. We looked at how long the review actually takes, and that we identified that that was the issue, the length of time that the review was taking, and then we dug in a bit deeper, and then we discovered that there was a lot of the reviews were taking longer because the team wasn't talking enough about the approach for certain things. So someone would sort of introduce something new, and the first time his teammates would be in a code review, not even in a Slack conversation or whatever. And it just meant that there was a lot more discussion about things that there needed to be. So we encouraged more communication about those sort of things. We standardized a bit how we introduce sort of unexpected changes into the code, but you don't want to restrict too much. You want to give developers freedom to be creative. So yeah, that was a situation where looking at our changes in our cycle time um, helped us identify some deeper issues. So yeah, so this is one of the really cool things that you can do. You can start it with your team, and if it works well, you can suggest it to some other teams. Um, yeah, I hope this has been helpful to anyone out there who's managing a team. It's been really helpful for me since I started using scorecards. I try to use it in every other team that I've managed, and it's worked wonders. That's all for me today. Thank you very much, and have yourself a good day. Bye.